Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, they say what comes around goes around. For John Swinney, that yesterday afternoon became true. He became Scotland's seventh First Minister after being appointed unopposed as SNP leader on Monday, and it was a coronation event like no other, where Swinney was threatened by a contest from rank-and-file activists within his own party after hapless Hamza Yousaf paved the way to his own resignation. By his own stupidity, it must be said. But now the veteran Nat and second time around leader of the SNP swooped into the position of First Minister with virtually no opposition. Obviously, each of the other parties put their man up, but it was never ever going to be anything other than Swinney being elected. There was just a faint chance that if everyone voted against him, then it could have gone the other way. But it was a faint chance, and I did say at the time, while it was there, it wasn't likely. I said not to hold your breath, and I was right. But the other parties accepted they weren't going to win, and so it came to be that he was anointed as the new First Minister. But not, I think, without some humour in the room, it must be said. And a great set. I think each of the leaders, they each had a little say, and it was quite amusing. And the reason being, with the words that they used, how can we put this? We used his own history. They used his own history against him, shall we say? Douglas Ross, Anna Sarwar, and of course Alex Cole Hamilton all stood up and gave a tiny little speech. And there was a lot of, shall we say, foreshadowing. Alex Sarwar, he gets up. He says, the third occasion is the result of a farce inflicted on Scotland and its parliament. The party that now, without any democratic process, seeks to foist its unelected leader upon our country. The party that promotes its own by making cronyism a way of life, always lets Scotland down. This afternoon, this farce may be carried to its illogical conclusion. Those were the words of Anna Sarwar. Or at least those were the words that Anna Sarwar said. He was actually quoting John Swinney from back in 2001. And I think that, when thrown in his face, seems quite amusing. Even Swinney himself was seen laughing at that one. Then, of course, Ross gets up. Ross, another one who likes to, pick at the bones. And he said, it seems pretty likely that the leader of the largest minority party in Parliament, with the help of the fourth largest minority party, will be successful in this afternoon's election. Again, these were the words Ross used, but those utterances were not his own. They were Swinney's. And he said, and he continued, it is interesting to see John Swinney back, seeking the support of this Parliament more than 2 decades on from his previous attempt. And then he smirked and sat down. And again, even then, Swinney smiled, laughed. And it is quite apt, I think. But these things go on. They all pick on him. But it is nice at least to see that there is a sense of humour in the chamber. It's just a shame that they couldn't work together to oust Swinney, to oust the SNP, and to force an election. It could have been done because, they did have the numbers. And I think the only reason, and I'm pretty sure the only reason they didn't do it, is perhaps because they don't want an election yet either. Have orders come down from on high? For heaven's sake, don't do it. We can't afford to do it. Now, it seems odd because Scottish Labour is not Labour. Scottish Tories are not the Tories. They are each their own individual parties. They're not beholden. They're not beholden to the Tories in, the Tory party at Westminster. They are aligned, but they're not the same party. They're registered as separate parties with the Electoral Commission. Now, obviously, they do get funding from central party, the central control of the Labour and the Tory party. Not much, but some. But they are individual. And they could have done it without, recourse to the main Tory party, the main Labour party. It is a very weird setup. They could have done it. They all could have done it. And the only reason, as I say, is I think lack of funding. I think this lack of funding is something that affects all parties. They know they've got the big one coming, and they don't want to waste money on the Scottish Parliament elections. And yet, it could have been so much better. Still, it's not the end. They'll fight. It's only, it's less than 2 years now, and they've got that election anyway. So they can push on. That's the main thing. It's not over. They will continue to fight. The only thing now, of course, is that the SNP will be reliant on other parties, of course, but they're still likely to put everything through. I mean, I explained this in a video yesterday, how Labour voted with them 75% of the time regardless. They didn't even need to go into a coalition with the Greens at all. When it comes to economics, if they get the economics right, Tories are bound to vote for them as well in order to get things through. Obviously, the Tories will demand a little thing here, a little thing there. And that's exactly, of course, how it's supposed to be. Indeed, that was how the entire Parliament was meant to be, and that's how it was set up to be in the first place. The very fact it didn't is sort of a corruption of intent. Corrupted, of course, after a massive landslide victory by the SNP, who more or less got on and did what they said and did what they did without recourse to Parliament. They did not need to refer to Parliament. It was a debasement, in fact, of democracy. But there we go. That's what it is. That's where it is. He is in, obviously, but he's not going to have a good time. With Rishi Sunak on the edge, and seriously on the edge now. It may be very soon before he's challenged for leadership. Now, at the moment, I'm still thinking he'll go late in the year. I know that Preston journalist thinks sooner. I think it's more or less impossible for him to go sooner now. The pressure to go now would be overwhelming by all the people in the party. So I think a late election. But you get later in the year. So Swinney will get 3-4 comfortable months. Let's say get him to September. The election will be announced some point in September. And that'll be it. Then he knows he's on the countdown, because come the election, the SNP get wiped out, and then Swinney will be forced to go. What's appalling, and my personal view on this is, at that moment he leaves, he still gets his nice pension for life. I think, firstly, that they should not get their pension until the pension age that everyone else gets their pension, number one. And number two, it should be not a pension for life based on your salary, but a pension for life based on the terms used. So you have to complete, say, a full year to get 50% of that salary, and 3 years to get the 100%. That's if you argue it should have been got there at all, but that's a different matter. But it should be time served. You can't just go in for 6 weeks and get it like Liz Truss, for example. I think it's utterly wrong. Anyway, enough of that. I'll stop there. Thank you very much for listening. There are many more stories today, so it's going to be another busy day. For some reason, it's just really picked up. So keep an eye out, and I will speak to you soon. Thanks. Bye.